up, everybody? It's Justin. Welcome to Live Ask Me Anything number 86. Let's make sure everything's going according to plan. My phone was dying before I started this, so I gotta make sure everything is working. I'm gonna refresh the Facebook page. There's always more to think about when I'm doing these Facebook presentations with the whiteboard. My favorite thing ever, my favorite way to teach any topic. So I'm gonna refresh here, go to videos, see what's going on, everybody. How you doing? Hi, welcome. All right, let's see. Hold on, it's taking a second. My internet's being slow. I hope it doesn't affect the video quality. Let's see here. Okay, got this pulled up, got this muted. I can see myself. What's up? Judy. Hey, Judy. Hey, Laura. Hey, Steve. Hey, Shannon. Hey, Stephanie. Hey, John. Hey, Julianne. Hey, what's up, everybody? That's a lot of people. Welcome. Live Ask Me Anything, number 86. A little bit bright. That's okay. It looks good. Let's see. Sounds good. Microphone set up. The podcast is recording. God, there's so much to keep track of. Julianne, reacting. Thank you. I see the reactions. Click the happy button. Click the love button. Click the smiley button. Share this on your page. Click the share button. Share it to your timeline. This is a super important one. I'm going to yell a lot. Okay? Just so you guys know, this is going to be one of those episodes where I yell and I call people nasty names because some people simply deserve it. Gonna be one of those nights, everybody. Strap on your seatbelts or whatever you do before an AMA. I don't know. What's up, Joel? How's it going? Judy, thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. Share, share, share. What's up, Jackie? Hey, Joe. Hey, Cameron. What's up, everybody? All right. Let's dig into this thing. This is going to be a nasty one, right? Not really nasty. This is going to be a good one, I hope. I hope that it brings you much joy and information. Now, I will say this. Of all the AMAs I've done, over 200 plus hours of AMAs, this is the 86th one. I'm going to teach you some stuff that you have not learned before tonight, so that's always really fun. A lot of times I feel like I'm going over things, like many times in many different ways, which for me can be a little boring, to be honest. But hey, you guys, a lot of you come to me, you know, AMA number 86 might be your first AMA ever. You might have some questions that a lot of Clovis OGs know the answer to because they've consumed all the AMAs, but you haven't, right? Totally fair. I'll repeat this stuff ad nauseum over and over and over as long as it takes to get in your head and make sure that you are super healthy, okay? This is a big one. This is a big one, and I chose to do it based on something that happened actually in my personal life in the wonderful world of social media. This is something that happens a lot in my life, and I knew better than to engage with this, and I still engaged. Joel, we're talking about something different, bro. All right, so listen. The thing about it is what people will do is they will get involved in these things in social media, and they will start throwing my name around. They'll start throwing my name around, or they'll tag me in posts, or they'll say, this guy Justin says something against what you just said, or in this particular one, I was tagged in a post from someone that I'm gonna dig into. But it brought up this entire concept here, and hold on a second. God, I hate when my computer gives me weird little things here. Let me make sure of something real quick. Okay. I think we're doing good. My phone is plugged in, so hopefully this will work. Hopefully I don't get cut off mid-thing here. But let's jump in, and then we are going to do an AMA at the end of this one. Don't worry, I'll answer some questions and stuff. It'll all be cool. So if you have questions, we'll hit them at the end, but I got to dig into this. So I'm going to start with what the topic is. I'm going to explain how we got here, and then we're going to take this step by step. Sorry, I'm just being really nervous about my phone because I hope it doesn't die. It better not die. That would suck, okay? All right, so tonight, I am here to dispel one of the most absurd myths in all of health and wellness. This one really drives me crazy. So I have to be clear here. This actually doesn't come so much from health and wellness. It's repeated a lot now in the fitness space, but it actually came from doctors. So this started with doctors and was repeated over and over by doctors. It's repeated by personal trainers. It's repeated by nutritionists. As you'll see in this story, it's repeated by registered dietitians, right? So this has been repeated over and over and over for decades and has gone virtually unquestioned by anybody, okay? People just parrot this over and over and over, and they don't actually know why they parrot it, okay? So again, docs started it, personal trainers ran with it, social media influencers still won't stop talking about it, and again, these registered dietitians that we're going to talk about. So in its most common form, it sounds something like this. Quote, the brain needs at least 130 grams of carbohydrates each day to function properly. End quote. I'm sure you've all heard some version of this. The brain needs X number of carbs each day. The brain can't function without carbohydrates. The brain needs a certain number of carbohydrates. But in its most popular form, the brain needs at least 130 grams of carbohydrates each day to function properly. How do we know this is the most popular form? Because if you search Google for how many carbohydrates does the brain need, the first result on Google will tell you that the recommended number of carbohydrates for brain function is 130 grams of carbohydrates. This is the #1 search result on Google, ladies and gentlemen, okay? The #1. What a lovely scientific hypothesis you have there, Mr. Doctor or registered dietitian or some other person with fancy credentials after your name. Unfortunately, there is zero evidence anywhere on God's green earth for this ridiculous myth, okay? There is zero evidence anywhere. And when I say that, I mean it quite literally. I am not saying, well, someone twisted the data from some scientific study. I'm not saying that a few studies back this up, but some other studies refute it. I'm not saying this is partially true, but details matter, blah, 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 blah. I'm saying this is complete bullshit, made up out of thin air. Literally nothing behind it. It is impossible to back up with evidence because there is literally not one single scrap of evidence in the world that exists to back up this bullshit myth. Okay? Nothing. This is not somebody confused. This is not, oh man, I just didn't know how to read that study. I didn't know the difference between epidemiology and a randomized control trial. I don't know the difference between causation and correlation. No, it just doesn't exist. Period. Okay? These words never should have left the lips of anybody and entered into the public forum ever. It's that inaccurate. It's just flat out wrong. Now, anytime I get into keto world, right, I have to let everybody know. I need to remind you. I full-blown hate what I call internet keto. That is the keto diet as known by 99.9% of people and the way 99% of people on the internet portray it, okay? This is garbage. It is nonsense. Keto, as the internet knows it, is a garbage, inflammatory, low-protein diet filled with dairy, keto cookies, ridiculous fat bomb desserts, and drinking fat through a straw. That's not Clovis. Clovis is not keto. I tell you guys this all the time. That said, I need to explain to those of you that don't know me that my understanding of keto is far different from the average social media influencers. So let's start by talking a little bit, just for a few minutes, about the ketogenic diet and seizure disorders. This little backstory is going to outline how absurd this whole thing is. So I got into the nutrition game partly because my niece Savannah was born terminally ill. She was born having over 300 seizures per day. She was in the pediatric ICU for many, many months. She was not supposed to live past her first few weeks. They did over $1 million in testing on her. She somehow defied the odds and made it past that first few weeks. And then we spent months in the pediatric ICU doing all this $1 million+ in testing. And I was talking to some of the top neurologists in the world. That was my introduction to the ketogenic diet as a therapeutic modality for the treatment of drug-resistant seizures in infants and toddlers. This was my education in the ketogenic diet, not the keto diet from the internet and how to order keto stuff at Wendy's drive-thru, right? This is not what keto is. Keto is a therapeutic modality, okay? Now, thankfully, Savannah has beaten all the odds. She's 5 years old. She's still with us. She is considered 100% disabled. A nurse has to take care of her. She is fed through a feeding tube. There is no shot at a normal life for this child, okay? But those first few months taught me more than I ever could have learned in some other setting. This is part of the reason why I dove into biochemistry so deeply. I did put what I now know through therapy is an unhealthy amount of pressure on myself to correct this issue that was at hand. This is why I went so in depth with biochemistry. I don't know if I've ever told you guys that before, but that's really why I spent 6 to 8 hours a day just studying biochemistry and the the off chance that I could somehow help this, right? So I learned the concept of keto from some of the top neurologists in the world, okay? Now, during this time, I was also introduced to the Charlie Foundation. The Charlie Foundation is an incredible organization that's dedicated to treating seizure disorders in children using the ketogenic diet as a therapeutic modality. Now, I'm not going to go deep down this rabbit hole, but the reason I preface this episode with this story is just to let you know that any, and I mean any, I don't care who they are, any health and wellness influencer or doctor or personal trainer or nutritionist, no matter what their title might be, if they tell you that dietary carbohydrates are required for brain function, they immediately disqualify themselves as an expert and have no right giving anyone any advice on nutrition or any other aspect of human health, period. That's how incorrect they are. Feel free to tag any and all social media influencers or doctors or experts that you would like to in the comments who you think disagree with me here, and I will happily walk them through this step by step. This is one of these things that I am so certain of that I will gladly talk to anybody with any fancy letters behind their name about this, okay? How could you ever make the claim that the brain requires dietary carbohydrates to function properly when there are literally entire foundations dedicated to removing dietary carbohydrates for the specific purpose of improving neurological function in the human brain? And there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of cases of people all around the world who have seen significant improvement in malfunctions of the human brain when they remove carbohydrates. This is mental, pun intended, right? It's crazy, you guys. For those of you who haven't noticed, we're about to dig into the heart of the episode here, right? I keep specifically saying the words dietary carbohydrates. I haven't even mentioned glucose yet. I am foreshadowing. We're going to get there, okay? So we got a couple comments in. Let's see. We got anything here we need to hit? Not particularly. All right, let's dive in. So, why is tonight happening? Tonight is happening because of what you are up against. And this is what I want to explain to you. This is what you are up against. Why am I so upset about this week? Why am I talking about this tonight? Because I got in a ridiculous argument, and Christy, no need for apologies at all. She knows what I'm talking about here. This actually led to an amazing AMA episode that's going to be awesome, all right? So really, really cool stuff. So the reason I'm so pissed about this is because I got in this ridiculous argument with two people who ganged up on me and proved to me yet again just how screwed the average person is in America. Completely screwed. The deck is completely stacked against you. I say this because one of these dunces that came at me is a practicing registered dietitian, okay? The other one is studying to receive her master's in nutrition. I'm trying really hard to not have my brain explode into a million pieces, okay? One was a registered dietitian, one is getting her master's in nutrition, okay? Just want to be clear about that. Now, they told me that I need to re-educate myself because low carbohydrate and ketogenic diets are dangerous, and I quote, the brain needs at least 130 grams of carbohydrates daily to function properly. This is what we're up against, everybody. Now, I also want you to know that I calmly pointed out the flaws in their thinking, clearly and concisely, with evidence to back it up. The response? Well, they hit me back with a series of questions. Questions like, who are you? Who are you to say this? Are you a registered dietitian? What are your credentials? Then the accusations. You're just a YouTube guru. You get information from Dr. Google. I went to school. Right? Notice how they didn't have a single solitary rebuttal or piece of evidence to back up their opinions whatsoever. Why? Because deep down they know that if they were simply to just open their biochemistry books from that school that they're bragging about, the school that they went to, if they just opened the biochemistry book and double checked what I'm saying, they would realize that I am 100% correct and that they are, in fact, a couple of big, giant, floppy pricks, okay? This is what we're dealing with. So what have we learned from this lovely interaction? One, those people are fucking assholes. Two, the human ego is a real bitch, okay? It's not lost on me that I'm getting very angry about this. I understand. Again, the human ego is a real bitch, okay? But you see, these people responded with nothing but emotion. Nothing but emotion. I calmly suggested that their opinion may be wrong and that they should do a bit more research before they scare people by saying false information online and social media posts. Maybe think a little bit, you know? I had even gone as far as to say, in quote, I literally said, I am certain you mean well here. I think you are genuinely trying to help people, but this information is dangerously inaccurate, right? They respond with nothing but 100% emotion, disdain for me as a human, and not one single piece of evidence or facts to back up their claims. Their so-called evidence was literally, I went to a fancy school and I have letters behind my name, so you are beneath me and can't possibly know anything that I don't know. Right? That's really what it is. This is why the deck is stacked against Americans, because I'm telling you guys, this is what I come up against 95% of the time when I'm dealing with a quote-unquote health and wellness expert or quote-unquote healthcare professional, right? This is what I come up against. Doctors, dietitians, trainers, you name it. It's just a fire hose of ego spraying out of their mouths. All they care about is what school they went to, what credentials they got. They're completely closed-minded, right? Now I'm going to actually teach you, now they have the backstory, I'm going to teach you why these women are wrong, and I'm going to give you the accurate biochemistry behind this claim so that you never, ever, ever have to question this nonsense ever again. You will just know in your brain, okay? So it's time for biochemistry. I asked, you guys said you wanted to get into the biochemistry this week, so let's do it. So I'm going to start with a couple of terms that you need to understand, and this is going to get nerdy. Understand, okay? So the first one is erythrocytes. Erythrocytes are very important to understand, okay? So we're going to talk about erythrocytes, and we're also going to talk about one of my favorite words in all of health and wellness. So we have erythrocytes and we have gluconeogenesis. Let's dive in. Erythrocytes are a type of red blood cell in human beings. Now, these are the only cells in the human body that actually require glucose for survival, meaning they cannot run on ketones, they cannot run on fatty acids, okay? So these erythrocytes are the only cells in the human body, it's a type of red blood cell, without glucose, they die. That's because erythrocytes don't have a nucleus and they don't have their own mitochondria. So they can't create their own energy, they cannot burn fat for fuel. So without glucose, they die, okay? Now, the thing about erythrocytes, these red blood cells, is if those red blood cells die, you die, okay? So this is where this comes from. They need glucose or they die. So if you ever run out of glucose and these cells die, you die. This is serious stuff, okay? So we're going to talk about gluconeogenesis and how gluconeogenesis plays into these things called erythrocytes and how this all works together. So here's the big, giant lack of common sense that we run into when dealing with these mainstream health and wellness professionals. They hear terms in biochemistry like glucose is required for human survival. Quote, glucose is required for human survival. And they translate that in their own brain into, quote, carbohydrates are required for human survival, end quote. Do you see the difference? Glucose is required for human survival versus carbohydrates are required for human survival, okay? Well, you know what I'm going to say next. Details matter. Details matter, details matter, details matter. These people are mixing up glucose with dietary carbohydrates, which no so-called expert should ever do. This is an unacceptable mistake for a trained professional. I mean, it's an unacceptable mistake for me, in my opinion. I am a professional musician with a podcast, right? And it's beyond unacceptable for me to teach you that, let alone what this means for healthcare professionals, healthcare providers. It is beyond unacceptable for a healthcare provider to tell you that dietary carbohydrates are required for human survival simply because of the fact that glucose is required for human survival. They are mixing up glucose and carbohydrates. two different things. So let's dive in to digestion to help you understand this further. Digestion is the process of breaking down foods into their simplest molecules. Now for more, you can watch my AMA on this. I did an AMA called Basics of Human Metabolism. That's at clovis.show, SHOW/metabolism. Clovis.show/metabolism. So, oh no, eraser. Let's see. We can do this. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about human metabolism here. So the process of human digestion and metabolism is breaking things down to their simplest points, right? So carbohydrates get broken down into glucose. Protein gets broken down into amino acids. Fats get broken down into fatty acids. Now, all of these, glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, these are all required for human survival. However, only two of them are what is called essential nutrients. Now, I'm going to explain what this word essential means, okay? Essential nutrients are nutrients that must be obtained through the diet because without them, we die, and the body can't make them endogenously. If it's an essential nutrient, it has to be obtained through the diet because we can't make it ourselves. But only two of these are essential nutrients. That would be fatty acids and amino acids, okay? This is a great example of this. Glucose, however, is not required from the human diet for survival. But wait a minute, how can this be? So if we require glucose for human survival, and we know that carbohydrates are broken down into glucose, doesn't that mean carbohydrates are essential nutrients? No, not even a little bit, because of our old friend gluconeogenesis. Okay? Now, the best way for me to explain this to you is to take carbohydrates outside of the body and inside of the body. And we're going to talk again about gluconeogenesis. We're going to get deep into gluconeogenesis. So, I want to explain this outside-inside thing because I think it's going to help you guys picture this. I was trying to think of the best way to whiteboard this. So, if we think of carbohydrates outside of the body, okay? So, we'll say outside of the body. So if we're thinking outside of the body, carbs equal glucose. As I've told you guys before, all carbohydrates break down into glucose in the body eventually, right? So if we're thinking outside of the body, carbs equal glucose. But if we're thinking inside of the body, inside of the body, glucose does not equal carbs. Okay? So outside of the body, carbs equal glucose. Inside of the body, glucose does not equal carbs. These are not to be thought of as the same thing inside of the body. So yes, glucose is required for human survival. But if you pay attention to details, you'll learn very quickly that glucose does not have to be obtained through the food that we eat because our body can make plenty of its own. The body can meet all of its own glucose requirements and then some, even if you were to never ever ingest a single gram of carbohydrates from your diet. As long as you live, you would have plenty of glucose in your system. Isn't Mother Nature amazing? This is why it's not an essential nutrient, because you can make it endogenously. That is what gluconeogenesis is, okay? The creation of glucose in your own body. Your liver does it. It's amazing, and we're going to dig in. But I want to talk to you a little bit more about these survival mechanisms. So here's the thing. As the human body has evolved, it has figured out some very important things. For instance, I did an AMA episode called The Alkaline Diet, Fact or Fiction. And what I teach you through that whole episode is that you cannot change the pH level of your blood through diet. Please understand this. I don't have time to rant about the alkaline diet right now. go watch the Alkaline Diet Fact or Fiction, look up the podcast, look up the Alkaline Diet, go to clovis.show and search alkaline. I debunk the entire bullshit myth of the alkaline diet, okay? You can't significantly change the pH level of your blood because the human body will not allow it. Dramatic shifts in blood pH will kill you in a matter of seconds. Don't tell me because you peed on some pH strip and your urine measured alkaline that you've changed the pH level in your blood. You haven't, I promise you, okay? If you did, you would die. So if eating certain foods could significantly impact our blood pH, our entire species would have died off countless years ago. We would not be here doing this AMA, I promise you, right? The body puts defense mechanisms in place to prevent these catastrophes from happening. In that episode, I gave you the example of baking soda. So if you truly wanted to change the pH level of your blood, the fastest possible way to do so would be to drink a bunch of water mixed with baking soda. Just take a bunch of baking soda and water, try to chug as much of it as you can to try to change your pH level significantly to prove to that guy Justin on the internet that you can change your blood pH. But guess what? You still probably won't die because the body won't allow it. You would be vomiting and having diarrhea and laying on the ground in a puddle of your own filth and misery, and the body would be rejecting every single ounce of every substance in your system, and it would be rejecting it incredibly violently to prevent you from dying. That's the point. Does this happen when we eat quote-unquote acidic foods like a big juicy steak? No, because they can't change the pH levels in your blood. Case closed, right? That's about the alkaline diet. So now we're back to gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis is very similar to this. It's another protection mechanism. This is a beautiful example of a built-in survival mechanism for the human body. So again, I wish I didn't forget my eraser. I'm gonna have some nasty hands. So if we talk about erythrocytes again, right? So we talk about erythrocytes. These require glucose. They can't burn ketones, fatty acids for energy, right? So without glucose, these cells would die, which would also kill the human host. In simple terms, without glucose, you die, okay? But just like a significant shift in blood pH would kill you in seconds, having zero glucose in the human body would also kill you in seconds. It's that serious. So when something is that serious of a threat to the meat suit, this is why the body steps in with built-in mechanisms to prevent those things from happening. This is why the body will never let itself run out of glucose. This is why you don't need it through dietary carbohydrates. If the body needs it, it will make it. Gluconeogenesis. Back to this word gluconeogenesis. Now I'm going to read you the actual definition of gluconeogenesis. A metabolic pathway that results in the generation of glucose from certain non-carbohydrate carbon substances. From breakdowns of proteins, these substrates include glucogenic amino acids. From breakdown of lipids, they include glycerol, odd-chain fatty acids. And from other steps in metabolism, they include pyruvate and lactate. That's the definition of gluconeogenesis, right? You can learn more about pyruvate and lactate and all these things if you study the Krebs cycle and human metabolism. If you really want to go down that road, just give me a shout and I'll teach you where to go to learn about these things, right? Now, of that whole crazy definition, I'm going to give you the definition in really simple terms. This means that the body can make a shitload of glucose from a shitload of stuff that ain't carbohydrates. That's it. Got it? Good. That's all that it means. Okay? So just like the pH issue, if lack of dietary carbohydrates could kill humans, our species would have died off countless years ago. We would not be here. Just ask the Inuits who live in a harsh condition where plants can't even grow. And 90% of their food intake comes from fatty whale blubber, right? The process of gluconeogenesis is simply a fail-safe to prevent species-level extinction, literally. The liver can convert both amino acids and fatty acids into glucose for the cells that require glucose for fuel. You don't need to eat carbohydrates to get glucose to erythrocytes. You just don't need it, okay? Now, I've actually outlined this for you guys in the past with my Dexcom experiment, my continuous blood glucose monitor, my Precision Extra. I've done these examples that I put up on Instagram where I will fast. I'll do an extended, I did a 5-day fast and worked out once or twice a day through the whole fast, but I'll do these little tests where I'll fast for at least 24 or more hours. This way I know all my liver glycogen is depleted, right? I have no glycogen in my liver that I can use. So I'll go into an extremely glycolytic exercise on purpose, something like kettlebells or time under tension or rolling jujitsu. I will choose something that is such a high energy demand that I can only burn glucose for this activity. So I'll measure my blood sugar before the activity, measure my blood sugar after. And what ends up happening is my blood sugar is higher after. Now initially, when I do these glycolytic training sessions while I'm fasted, my blood glucose will plummet. It starts to plummet, my Dexcom screams at me, I get down to 50 blood glucose and my Dexcom says I'm dying, but I feel fine and I'm somehow still swinging the kettlebell with zero problems, right? Everything's perfectly fine. But after that workout, if I just sit and wait for 20 to 30 minutes without ingesting any food at all, my glucose levels go right back to normal. The body floods its own bloodstream with glucose that it created, all by itself, like magic. That is gluconeogenesis, okay? This is what we're dealing with. So I've now beaten, I don't even know how many AMAs I've done this, but in a zillion AMAs, I have beaten the horse of metabolic flexibility to death. Metabolic flexibility being able to shift between burning glucose for fuel, burning fat for fuel, based upon the energy demands in the body. You should be able to move through these two fuel sources seamlessly and effortlessly with no sugar detox, no crash, none of the crap that you guys go through with your first week with me because you're metabolically inflexible. But metabolic flexibility is something that I want to touch on here because metabolic flexibility and gluconeogenesis are a survival mechanism. But it's a survival mechanism that has now been completely abused by human beings for about a century now, right? So fatty acids can be converted into ketones and burned for virtually limitless energy. For instance, there was an obese human that fasted for 382 days. In 1971, this guy's name was Angus, which is hilarious. And he fasted for 382 days, and he lost 276 pounds. By the way, at the end of that fast, his blood work was basically perfect. Because an obese human can live basically indefinitely on their stored body fat, depending on how much stored body fat they have. Why did this guy lose all that weight, become very healthy, a very healthy body weight with healthy blood work? Because this is how the human body is supposed to work. Fat storage is literally just storing calories for survival in times of food scarcity. But we have hijacked that system now because we live in this world of food abundance on every corner, which has never before existed in the history of the human species. So fat is so easy to store because fat should be the fuel of choice for about 99.9% of your activities as a human being. Should be, okay? Now, ketones burn much more efficiently than glucose. They burn much cleaner, but they burn slower. They require oxygen to be utilized. The term aerobic literally means with oxygen. Glucose burns far less efficiently, releases more free radicals, but it does provide immediate energy because it does not require oxygen to be utilized. The term anaerobic literally means without oxygen. Okay? Now, one molecule of fatty acids can produce about 6 or 7 times more energy than one molecule of glucose. It's that much more efficient. It's exponentially more efficient. But it takes longer to burn, and the body doesn't always have the luxury of time. Let's say, for example, you were getting chased by a lion. Okay? You don't have the luxury of time there. This is why we store glycogen. Glycogen is the storage form of glucose. So glycogen is stored in the liver and muscle cells for emergency situations. We can store somewhere around 60 grams of liver glycogen and somewhere around 400 grams of muscle glycogen throughout the body. That's all we can handle, which is crazy because humans can literally store endless body fat. Literally endless. You've seen modern day Americans. Go to the airport and look around. There is no limit on how much body fat we can store. Why can we store so much body fat and so little glycogen? Because glycogen was never meant to be stored in excess. Fat was never meant to be stored in the excess that we see it now of actual obesity, right? Fat was supposed to be just enough to be our primary fuel source to get us through cold winter months. Glycogen is meant to be an emergency energy reserve, not a primary source of energy, okay? So think of an old fire extinguisher in a building. And the old fire extinguisher has a glass panel and it says, in case of emergency, break glass. Think of your glycogen as the useful tool behind the glass, okay? So a fire extinguisher, in case of emergency, break glass. Glycogen is the fire extinguisher in this analogy, okay? Think of glycogen as the fire extinguisher behind the emergency glass. You're glad it's there. It can save your life under the right circumstances, but hopefully you would never need to use it, okay? Now, in hunter-gatherer times, the only time glucose would have ever been used was during a hunt, chasing prey, or running from a predator. That is it, okay? Glucose is specifically designed for moments of all outbursts of energy for only a few seconds at a time, done very, very infrequently. I promise you, there were no hunter-gatherer tribes doing group fitness classes an hour a day, Monday through Saturday. This was not a thing, okay? Virtually all of the daily movement / exercise of our ancestors was aerobic and very low intensity. So if you've ever done traditional hunting, it's a whole lot of slow walking. If you've ever done any gathering, picking berries or whatever, it's a whole lot of slow walking. This is also my big secret and why I get people incredibly healthy by telling them to stop intense workouts and adopt daily walks. I'm turning them into fat-burning furnaces and they don't even realize it because they don't understand the biochemistry, okay? So I hope you're starting to put some of these puzzle pieces together and why this is so infuriating for me. You guys need to understand the human body literally is not designed to run on glucose as its primary fuel source. Even when you're born, you are born in ketosis. That's why babies are so fat. That's why breast milk is fattening. That's why you want a baby to have pudgy rolls all over it to ensure the survival of that baby, because that baby is born as a fat burner, not a sugar burner. And people get confused by this and try to claim things like breast milk is a high carbohydrate thing. They don't realize that the carbohydrates that are found in breast milk are literally prebiotic dietary fiber to feed the gut bacteria of the baby. But I'm not going down the rabbit hole of baby formula right now, okay? Now, throughout all of human history, the fuel that we are designed to utilize 99.9% of the time is fatty acids, period. This is irrefutable, okay? No matter how many marathon runners swallowing goo packs with 20 pounds of belly fat that they need to lose, no matter how many of those people tell you that you need carbohydrates, it's still not true, okay? Now, to argue that the human brain cannot properly function without an absurd amount of carbohydrates goes against our entire understanding of the human body and even the most basic facts of biochemistry. If this argument were even 100% true, were even 1% true, if this argument was even 1% true, which it is not, I repeat, it is not, but even if it was, 130 grams of carbohydrates is an absurdly high number. I have already told you that the body can only store about 60 grams of glycogen in your liver before it begins converting the excess glucose into triglycerides and storing it as body fat. So why the hell would you need 130 grams of carbohydrates every day? Why, if the brain required 130 grams of carbohydrates, would the body start packing up glucose after 60 grams and storing it as body fat? It doesn't make any sense. The whole thing is just ridiculous, okay? And again, it's not lost on me. I am a random musician from Nashville. And I have to be the one to tell you this shit because the medical community is bumping into walls walking around because their heads are so far up their asses that they can't see these things clearly with even a lick of common sense. It's crazy, right? So to wrap this up, I want to be very clear. Anytime you're walking around, anytime you're online, anytime you're at a dinner party, and someone repeats this absurd phrase, quote, the brain needs X number of carbs each day to function, end quote, you can translate that sentence directly into, quote, I have no idea what I'm talking about, and my ego is too out of control for me to fact check myself, end quote. That's what you're dealing with here. It's insanity, everybody. It's insane. Now again, and I bring you back to the fact that I'm having this conversation because I was told this 130 grams of glucose thing from a practicing registered dietitian and someone about to receive their master's degree in nutrition. This is insane, everybody. Absolutely insane. So I want to dive into questions here. There's a lot of stuff coming up here. And what I want to end this on is I want to walk a little bit away from the biochemistry here because I've beaten this topic into the ground, I feel like. I've done a lot of yelling. But I need you guys to understand this. Away from the biochemistry, we need to talk about how you live your life, okay? Question everything. And I mean everything. Never, ever accept something as truth without looking into it yourself. And certainly, never parrot something out loud if you haven't fact-checked it yourself. That makes you an irresponsible person. And that is how these ridiculous myths spread. And it's not the first time. The medical community is full of these bullshit myths everywhere. Another great example is the maximum heart rate. Your maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age. That's your max heart rate. This is the max heart rate that all the machines in the hospitals are programmed on. Their algorithms are programmed around this. All of your Fitbit trackers and your treadmills and all the things and all the gyms are focused around this max heart rate. 220 minus your age equals max heart rate. Guess what? That was made up out of thin air as well. And the whole medical and fitness industry runs on it. Made up out of thin air. In fact, they've done studies on this. They'll take rowing teams, college-aged boys that are rowing, men, whatever, and they will stay above their maximum heart rate, according to that figure, well above their maximum heart rate for hours. If that were truly a maximum heart rate, there would be millions of people all over the world who have just dropped dead from maximum anaerobic exertion. And it just doesn't happen. But yet we don't go back and correct these things. Why? Why do we not correct these things? I don't get it, right? Another great example of this, I'm sure you guys have seen this on Instagram. I put it in the Facebook groups. There's a quote-unquote new study going around the internet proving that red meat is not bad for you. That red meat is safe. Hint, this is not a new study, okay? It's a meta-analysis of all the studies that have been around for decades that I've been telling you about for years, okay? Yet, the entire nation is now up in arms about this groundbreaking new study vindicating meat. Oh my goodness, where did this come from? No, dummy, this data has been around forever. You just weren't willing to pay attention until the fucking New York Times wrote about it. 'Cause you swallow shit blindly. Don't do that, Clovis. Do not swallow things blindly. Pay attention. All the information you could ever want is at your fingertips right now. All of it. It takes the most minimal amount of effort that you could possibly think of to fact check a blogger's post, to fact check an article by the New York Times, to fact check a podcast. Go buy Biochemistry for Dummies. Fact check this episode. Fact check me. I hope that you do it. I hope you present me with something that proves me wrong. If you present me with something that proves me wrong, I will do an AMA next week. I will give you a shout out. I will thank you for it. I will admit that I was wrong, and I will present the new evidence. That's the way that it should go. Okay? I want that to happen. If somebody came to me tomorrow with amazing evidence that definitively proved that everything I've ever taught you with Clovis was wrong, I would absorb that evidence like a sponge. I would probably be pretty excited about it. Why?
Because learning is my passion. The journey is the destination. For most people who go to get their nutrition degree or whatever, their destination is the master's degree. Once they get the degree, they're done learning. They've reached the peak. They don't need to learn anything else. All the peons beneath me must listen to my masterful nutrition knowledge. That's not the point. A black belt is not an expert. A black belt is just a new version of a white belt. They're ready to learn. That's the way that this works, everybody. Do not parrot things, right? I just want to learn the truth. If it turns out that my beliefs are wrong, I want to learn the truth. I don't care if it means I was wrong. I don't attach my self-worth to whether or not I'm wrong about nutrition. My ego is not wrapped up in my nutrition knowledge. All that happened was I set out years ago to learn the truth about human health, and now I share only the things that I have vetted to the extreme point of believing that they are worthy of sharing. I used to eat brown rice and tilapia 5 times a day. I've never told you to do that. I did that for years. I've never once shared it with you. Why? Because I was very, very wrong. Okay? It's not bad to be wrong. It's just important to understand that you need to change your habits. Don't parrot things. That's how this nonsense gets started. The entire purpose of science is to learn where you are wrong. That's the point. It's to disprove your current belief system. That's literally the entire purpose of science. The purpose of science is not to have a pissing contest and treat your patients like they are beneath you because you have some fancy letters behind your name. Go fuck yourself. Okay? That's how I feel about your fancy credentials. Don't care. Stop hurting people. There we go. AMA number 86. My trackpad just died, so now I'm going to use my mouse in a different way. That's my entire presentation, guys. I'm tired. All right, good night. Time for bed. It is like, God, this stuff just gets me, man. So I hope you guys learned some stuff in this episode that you did not previously know. That's always fun when that happens. Let's dig into some comments. Gosh, I've been parroting things all my life. Most people have. Stephanie, this is legit. It's the same thing. You and I just had a great talk about finance. It's exactly the same with financial experts. Most of them are clueless, okay? Financial experts, entrepreneurial experts, nutrition experts, fitness experts, relationship experts, parenting experts, religious experts. They are literally straight up parroting stuff that they've probably never researched on their own, okay? What else we got? Joel, I promise I'm going to get to your question too. I saw that. Love your info. Hate your cursing. Sorry. Not sorry. Find somebody else. No big deal. If you judge me based on cursing, then I'm not your guy. There's plenty of other people giving information on the internet. What else we got? You can send your friend the link once the video is posted on Clovis.show, 100%. Clovis.show is the easiest way to share stuff. I think you may be able to see the Facebook fan page without an account, but I'm not entirely sure about that. John, awesome, cool. That's the link to the guy who fasted for 382 days. Legit. The guy he had tea, coffee, water, and about 3 months in, they started giving him electrolyte capsules. But that's it. Literally no macronutrients whatsoever. 382 days. Crazy. Jim, how can I send this in email? Yeah, email will be really tricky. But the other thing you remember here, Jim, is it does go to Clovis.show, and that video is viewable by everybody. But this also goes to every single major podcast platform as audio. So this is on Apple Podcasts, this is on Google Play, Stitcher, Overcast, Spotify. Like no matter what you use for podcasts, it's there. It's awesome. What else we got? Everyone is just brainwashed, and it's very hard to break that issue. I actually think it's not that hard to break that issue. I hear this a lot. Like a lot of people say that to me over and over. They're just like, it's so hard to beat the brainwashing. There are certain things that are really, really tough to beat with brainwashing. But the biggest thing to understand is it's just learning how to acquire new skills. Like the concept of learning how to learn, this is where I talk about learn, unlearn, relearn. Like the first time you ever, like when I first thought, oh my God, brown rice isn't healthy? Whoa, that's crazy. Like I had to unlearn that and relearn the truth. And then, oh my God, carbs are bad for you, whatever. Like I had to unlearn and relearn the truth. Or like the brain doesn't need glucose, unlearn, relearn. The more you unlearn and relearn, the more you flex that muscle of learn, unlearn, relearn, the easier it becomes. And that's when all the dominoes fall. And the next thing you're looking around going, wow, if I want to be happy and healthy and fulfilled, I literally just need to do the exact opposite of what all of society is doing. It's that simple. When the average American can't afford a $400 emergency, the average American is just bogged down by credit card debt and houses they can't afford, when 80% of the population hates their career, when over 60% of the population gets divorced, when over 85% of the population is overweight and obese, a full 1/3 of the population is diabetic and pre-diabetic, why would you do literally anything that any of your friends and family tell you to do? Why would you do that? Why would you do anything that the mainstream ever tells you? I mean, all of the odds are so stacked against you. If you follow blindly like a sheep, you have no chance. You have no chance in hell. That's it. If I never give you another piece of advice again, the one piece of advice I can give you is literally just do the exact opposite of what the entire world does. That's it. Or at least America, do the exact opposite of what American mainstream does in every single category of life. That's it. Okay? Just listen to J-Dog. He knows his shit. Thank you. I appreciate that. Can I just borrow your brain? You did. That's the beauty of the internet. You just borrowed my brain for a full hour. My brain was just your brain. There you go. Awesome, right? What else we got here? John. What do we got here? So people that have degrees don't know what they're talking about, but you do. This is my first time watching you. 15 minutes in, you've done nothing but bash people to build yourself up. Well, you missed the entire purpose of this entire episode. So, sorry you feel that way. Go keep doing whatever you're doing. Somebody tagged you because you probably needed it, and that's cool. Whatever. John, thanks, buddy. What else we got here? Woohoo, rant early, love, yeah. Oh boy, here we go. Yeah, this one's crazy. All right, what else we got? Tagging people, that's awesome. I love that. The unlearning and relearning is my favorite part of Clovis. That's awesome. I absolutely love that. It's very important you have to understand that learn, unlearn, relearn is actually a skill. It's a skill just like any other skill. All of this is a skill, right? It's the same thing with people with degrees don't know what they're talking about. That comment right there, like, oh, people with degrees don't know what they're talking about. Listen to me. I assure you, 15 years from now, a college degree is not going to mean what it means today. 10 years from now, a college degree is not going to mean what it means today, right? 50 years from now, there might not even be a US government. I don't think people understand. YouTube is 10 years old, ladies and gentlemen. YouTube is 10 years old. You probably have a hard time remembering when YouTube didn't exist. That is how quick the exponential growth of technology is. Do you know how young Facebook Live is? I've been doing Facebook Live for 86 weeks. You guys think it's always been here. It seems like that. It's not. The exponential growth of technology, I am telling you what is happening behind the scenes with education is blowing up the entire industry. Check out Coursera. Check out Khan Academy. Check out Teachable. Check out Kajabi. Check out italki. All of these things, right? Teaching. People are building their own paths to get all of the same information as somebody that has a full-blown college degree without being saddled with the debt. You see? Some people still believe that the debt is worth it. In my opinion, those people are 100% wrong, okay? Now, there are certain benefits if you go to a Harvard Medical School and you're in that alumni network. That's a big deal, right? You can actually throw your weight around a little bit. If you're an Ivy League guy, there's these connections. These kinds of things do matter, right? If you're a lawyer, you probably want to go to legal school. But again, my brother is an attorney. He went to Nashville School of Law and spent literally 1/10 on his education of the attorney that went to UT in Tennessee. He has the same degree. He passed the same bar. You see? So you guys have to understand, it's flexing these muscles. It's not about are credentials wrong. Are these credentialed people bad people? What I'm saying is the system is built to teach these credentialed people that they are somehow up here, elevated above the rest of the population. Right? Musician from Nashville, Justin, cannot possibly know what this girl with a master's degree in nutrition knows, but we just had this experience together over the last hour of why that girl's ridiculously high education and credentials is like putting blinders on her and preventing her from seeing the accurate information. We know that most medical schools are at least 17 years behind cutting-edge scientific data, okay? We know this. So yes, I get animated. Yes, I yell. Yes, I get upset about this stuff. Why? Because we have been told our entire lives that we just need to shut up and listen to the credentialed experts. This is literally what we're told. How many of you feel comfortable walking into your primary care physician's office and telling him what you want from him? No, doctor, I want blood test XYZ, and you are going to give it to me because you work for me. No, doctor, I'm not taking your advice on eating healthy whole grains. Here's scientific data as to why you're wrong and should probably change your way of thinking. Almost none of you will do that. Every client that I have is terrified of their doctor because the doctor's usually rude and closed-minded. Why? Because in the doctor's brain, he is an expert and you are a peasant. Okay? This is the way that it works, everybody. This is why I get so worked up. This is why I get so upset about this stuff. Why I will get on here and rant and talk about credentials and talk about these people having their heads up their asses, right? It's important. The animation is important. Some people don't like my profanity. Some people don't like that I am super alpha and sometimes want to choke people, okay? I definitely do. But I am changing lives every single day. This is a concept that I call shaking people awake. For every one person that is upset that I dropped an F-bomb, there are 100 other people who went, holy crap, this guy's passionate. Whoa, what is he? Oh my God, whoa! He's, holy crap! I can't stop watching this guy. He's right? I'm shaking people awake. And my results speak for themselves. This is all carefully calculated, everybody. There's never been a point in Clovis. Yeah, I'm laughing right now because there's this customer service experience with this post-workout stuff. And people are like, Justin, did you know this? Did you know that? Did you know? I'm like, guys, I've been running this company by myself for years. I know everything about the company that you know. If something went wrong with an order, I know about it, right? And I'm fixing it. And I always fix it. I've never let you down once. Never. That's never happened, right? So I'm 100% transparent with you guys all of the time. I'm transparent about the fact that I sometimes trick you, right? I have to get you through the door with lose 7 pounds in 7 days. Lose 14 pounds in 14 days. I have to do that to get you through the door, to get you to freaking pay attention to me. I have to use profanity. I have to be an entertainer. I've been a professional entertainer for 17 years. My job is entertaining people. My whole life, right? I have to do this. Every single one of these people here that was like, I don't like your profanity. I don't like it. You just made fun of somebody. They're going to go to bed and they're going to think about what I said. Maybe 3 months down the line, they'll see a Facebook ad with me saying, hey guys, listen, I really love you. I want you to be happy. I'm sorry that I shook you awake. I'm sorry that I swore at you. It's super important. And they go, oh man, maybe that guy's not so bad after all. I don't care if it takes somebody 1.5 years to sit down and watch a full AMA of me. I don't care if I'm misunderstood. I don't care. Because I know the truth behind what I'm doing. And I'm transparent with you guys all of the time. I share this with you every step of the way. What the mission of Clovis is. Sometimes you gotta shake people awake. Okay? Any other comments we got? College degree means nothing today. I have one and working on a second just to fight boredom. That's a silly reason to do it. But hey, do your thing. That's awesome. What else we got? Judy, functional medicine doctor is the way to go. Yes, absolutely. Good functional medicine doctor for sure. That's the other thing is people know that I always recommend you get a functional medicine doctor who's also a medical doctor. If you have a holistic doctor or a naturopath, they're not a medical doctor. I highly recommend that you find a functional medicine medical doctor that is an MD. I respect MDs tremendously. I have them on my podcast, right? The ones that have open minds and teach nutrition and the importance of nutrition, those are the doctors that come on my podcast. I have another doctor, Dr. Anthony J, will be on my podcast next week, right? These are the doctors that I love doctors. They know way more than I do. Way more than I do. Astronomically more than I do, okay? What else we got? I stopped listening to doctors a long time ago when I was told to do something, and with just 10 minutes of research, I found out how very wrong they were. Yeah, great. Another guy that's coming on the podcast is Dr. Ken Berry. Look up the book Lies My Doctor Told Me. It's really like the only book you need to read if you're worried about doctors. Literally called Lies My Doctor Told Me. It's fantastic. Judy, I love the truth no matter how you get it across. That's why I joined Clovis. You are so down to earth. Thank you. I appreciate that. Try to be down to earth. I'm also from the Northeast, and I grew up a little tough guy. So I am who I am. Awesome. I work. Still sit down and do inner child work and go to therapy every week and try to fix this stuff, right? So I am who I am. Always going to be who I am. 100% transparent with you. Speaking of which, there'll probably be just an episode this week because I was asking you guys if you want to learn about this or learn about like productivity hacks or daily time management and all these things to just kind of increase your overall quality of life. So I'll probably hit that with another episode. But this is AMA number 86 called No, Your Brain Does Not Need Carbs. No, your brain does not need carbs. Okay? So I hope you learned something in this. I hope erythrocytes was a new term for you. Gluconeogenesis, understanding the body can create its own glucose. It can meet all of its glucose needs. No problem at all. Deanna, you have quickly become one of my favorite people. Love your brain. Thank you so much. That means the world to me. I love having you here. I appreciate it. I appreciate that comment very, very much. So I'm going to keep doing the thing no matter what, no matter who likes my comments or whatever. I'm just going to keep going. So if you guys like it, click the happy button, click the love button, click the smiley face, click the wow face, the sad face, all the things. Share this with your friends. Tag your friends in the comments. Remember, this is the Facebook. This is the Clovis Culture page. This is public. So you can tag your friends in the comments and they will see this. If there's a minute marker that you want them to see, you can tag them in that minute marker. Say, hey, listen to this part about erythrocytes and gluconeogenesis and glycogen, blah, 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 right? This is how we get the information across. Share it. It's awesome. You can put me on your flash briefing on your Amazon Alexa in the morning. I can be in your kitchen with you, brewing your coffee every single morning. You can hear my voice. So I'm just pushing this information as much as I possibly can, and the information push is going to be even heavier in the coming months. I have a lot of things happening behind the scenes that are very, very exciting. So thank you guys. Hope you learned a lot. No, your brain does not need carbs. This is AMA number 86. I am Justin Nault. Have an amazing night. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. I love you. I will see you tomorrow in the Facebook groups. All right?